I am seeing friends I have not seen in a long time. Some of them I've met in person, and others have only seen on screen. And you know what? We can have relationships even just on screen because I'm a compulsive eater and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day off the gray sheet. I commit them to my wonderful sponsor. I don't eat in between meals no matter what. And abstinence gives me a kick-ass life today. My abstinence date is March 14th, 2015. And I checked with Victor before and Steph before. So um, I don't know, Victor, are you going to allow me to share the screen?
You should be able to share the green. It should be green down
It
there.
says the host has disabled.
Oh, let me see.
Okay. Because I got it all lined up in pictures. Anyway.
Okay, try it now.
Okay. Yes, it's working. Thank you so much. Awesome. I am going to do, hold on. So I qualify to be here. I absolutely promise. Um, and this is way too complicated. I'm making it more complicated than I need to. So hold on one second. So this is today, and so this is what it's like now. This is what it used to be like. And um, can you see an old picture now? Yes, thanks, Steph. Okay, so this was me back in 1994. I had just come back, moved back to the States after, well, the mainland after teaching in Hawaii for 2 years. And the great thing about teaching is that you get uh, a picture every year, so you can see exactly what it looked like. And this was 1994. This right here is me and my sidekick who just came in from doing the lawn. This was in 1996, I think. And we had just started dating. It was at a wedding in Arizona. And like it was the beginning of what was to be the end of my eating. I can remember trying to put on that dress that day. Soon after that, someone came into my AA circle that was doing 90-day OA and was my experience, strength, and hope there. And so I think this was 96 or 97 because here we are in 1999 and I am 132 pounds. I wish I was 132 pounds today. I'm pretty sure he was lower than that because not long after I came into 90-day OA, Joe joined me. And then this was what happened when 90 Day stopped working. This was Christmas of 2007. Our oldest here is now 22. Our youngest is now 18. I am now going to stop sharing, cancel. Let's see if that works. So that's what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now in pictures. I grew up in Boston. If you can't tell, I park my car in Harvard, and I do so honestly. I am the oldest of three. My parents are both alcoholic. One is sober and Alcoholics Anonymous, 42 years, I think. The other, not so much. And I dealt with that with bags and boxes. My earliest memories are of I can picture a birthday baked good still, and I can taste things still from the very first house I remember growing up in. Um, and there was a lot of screaming and just not good enough. Just not good enough. And just never felt accepted, never felt a part of, never felt the love of my parents. And I remember once getting like, I think when I was 18 years old, I had figured out my father had hugged me twice. And he was doing the best he could with what he had. I know that today. Didn't make it fun, didn't make it great. Um, And when I was in 5th grade, my mother brought me to some doctors because I was very tall. And one day I'll get that picture out, but you can see in my 1st grade picture, like, you know, everyone's lined up and here I am and here's everybody else. Like my head is here. I was head and shoulders above everyone else. And she brought me to Massachusetts General Hospital. They put me on estrogen and progesterone and brought my periods in 5th grade so that I would not go to my full height. And when they were doing that, everyone started telling me, everyone meaning aunts, uncles, cousins, teachers, parents, doctors, everybody, you know, you can't keep eating the way you're eating because you're not going to go up anymore. You're going to go out. And the shame, I can still picture my pediatrician having a conversation about some girl. And, you know, it's that she's got such a beautiful face. Too bad she doesn't have a nice figure. And my grandmother was one of the strongest proponents of my slowing down my eating. And, you know, I have joked with people many a times that she would say that, you know, isn't she beautiful? Isn't she smart? But thank you, Anya. Isn't it too bad she doesn't have a nice figure? And what happened for me is that in that 1994 picture, I was coming back from Hawaii. I was sober. I had been sober in Alcoholics Anonymous since 1991. And when I was living over in Hawaii and in the AA community, I met a woman who did AA, Al-Anon, and OA, and I became part of her master's degree thesis, and it was on changing behaviors, and it was going to be on losing weight. She never brought me to an OA meeting. I just want to be clear on that. What she did do was with her cohorts in her group that they were working on, they gave me a food plan. We talked about therapy. We talked about support groups, that type of thing. And the food plan, of course, did not include sugar. And I was successful for a while until the day that I have no idea why. I remember, so I was teaching in an elementary school and the buildings were all spread out and the 4th grade was selling stuff. And you know what they were selling, right? And, you know, for a long time, like what seemed like a long time, I was able to ignore it until the day I just went and bought what 4th grade was selling. And then I couldn't stop eating. I couldn't stop with the sugar. And I remember saying to her one day, I wish I had known, I wish there was a detox for sugar. And I moved home in August of 94. And when I got sober, in AA, they kind of said, you know, hey, make a list of 3 things you want out of life. And, you know, you're going to see your list get blown away. And that was very true. But my list, I got sober at 22, was a full-time teaching job, a boyfriend, and a new car. And skip ahead to around the time that you saw that picture of the wedding in Arizona. We were living together. I had a new leased car parked outside. I had been teaching for a few years and I wanted to slit my wrist and I didn't understand why. But I did know that I couldn't stop eating. And that's when I found myself in 90-day OA, which I think is like OA how. It's kind of like Gray Sheet Light. You weigh and measure with exception. Once you get to 90 days or your goal weight, they add in grains, but you weigh and measure those with exception. And you know, and that worked. You can see the pictures. You know, I was in that fellowship for a couple of years, and it worked until it didn't. And I don't know what else to say there, except the whole concept of it's much easier to get abstinent, to stay abstinent than to get abstinent. And, you know, we talk in this fellowship so much about pray, plan, prepare, and protect. And I don't know that that's what I heard. I did hear a lot of shaming around foods. If it was a food I really liked. The other thing I hear in Gray Sheet is we fight the food with the food. You know, and I had my number 10 breakfast this morning. And I cooked a number 10 vegetable this week, more than once. And in that fellowship, that would be considered not spiritual. And it would become a food you didn't eat anymore, because that food became more important. And you know, it's been a long time since I've been in that fellowship. That could have just been my line of sponsorship. I don't know. So in 2000 and trying to think. So yeah, we had our oldest daughter in 2001. She turned 1 in 2002. And there was an old timer, GreySheeter, who's not in the fellowship anymore, but she was someone Joe knew from the AA community. And I had met her. We had become friendly. She introduced me to GreySheet. She brought me to GreySheet meetings sometimes. And we bonded over being abstinent. But it stopped working, like I said, and I couldn't stop eating. And I had this, we were coming home. We were still living in Boston, but we had a trailer up here in Maine. And we were driving home. It was Memorial Day weekend, and I was so sick from eating. Our daughter was just about to turn 1. I was so sick. I didn't know if it was coming or going. And if you know what I mean, you know what I mean. And I called Susie, and I went to GreySheet. It was the Harvard Divinity School and the church in Harvard Square that everyone talks about, and or if you go to the Watertown meetings that they talk about, and I got abstinent in GreySheet. But again, that pray, plan, prepare, and to protect didn't stick with me, and I was a year or so abstinent, training to run the Disney Marathon. Went to work one day, and I'm a teacher, but at that time I was working in a job where I was in an office, and there was a grocery store down the street. I got to work. I didn't have my lunch. Thank you. And I just said, I gave it the efforts. I have no idea why. I was maybe a new mother. I had too much on my plate. I have no idea. And I ate. And the next day or the day later, we went to Disney World. We were running the Disney Marathon. I met Marathon Mary there. It was Susie and I had trained all through GreySheet to run this marathon. And one of the things they tell you not to do when you're training for a marathon is don't change your food the day before. And I found out why. And I won't get into it here. However, if you ever want to know, give me a buzz. I'll put my number in the chat. I was so sick. I finished, but I ruined my marathon. And then I went on to eat, and you can see those pictures. We had we took a geographic cure. We moved from the Boston area up to Maine. We got pregnant with our second child after multiple miscarriages. It turned into a 100-pound pregnancy. The midwives we had, there's one picture from that pregnancy, and I don't even know where it is. The midwives that were working with me had said when you started, we're not going to talk to you about your weight until it becomes a problem. Well, it became a problem. And they asked me if I was drinking my fruit. I'm like, honey, drinking my fruit ain't my problem. I'm a compulsive eater, but there were no good meetings. The phone bridge, I couldn't do the phone bridge. I found it annoying as hell. People, that was back before there were moderators and people would bump in and all that stuff. I had all the excuses. So skip ahead again. It's now 2008, and my sidekick here has been approved for gastric bypass, and a really good friend of mine had gastric bypass and gained it all back because she's just like me. Came out of a meeting I was at, and I said to God, you got to help me help him. God's answer had nothing to do with Joe, had everything to do with me. And I had been on and off the GreyNet. Somebody posted that they were available to sponsor, and I got back on. And I called them. And this is somebody who, I don't connect with today, but she saved my life because she was available. And then I've had a few other sponsors since then. I went back to day one in 2015. I had a food emergency that I only made one phone call for, and ate my meal. I was in a restaurant. I didn't weigh and measure it. I made my daughter's dance teacher my higher power. And I'm embarrassed as hell to say that today, but that was the absolute truth. I did not want this woman to judge me. And, but that marathon saved my life, because when I broke my abstinence that day, I was in my 40s, and I said to myself, you know how sick you got when you were in your 30s and you changed your food? Can you imagine how sick you'll get today? And I didn't eat anything, not GreySheet, and I waited. I called my sponsor the next day, went back to day one, and that was March 14th of 2015. And I am so grateful today. I have gone on to develop a relationship with a higher power that I am blown away by today. And that started about 2 years ago at a retreat. Now, 2 years ago, 30 years sober, I'm finally getting that relationship with God. And it changes, it changes all the time. In 2019, in August of 2019, Joe woke up one morning and said to me, I wanted a nap. He wanted an abstinent breakfast. He likes to tell people he had an abstinent breakfast in his hand in about 3 seconds. It was probably 5. It took me that long to go to the kitchen and back. And then I paused because what was funny is I was already having a resentment against him for when he broke his abstinence for all the work I did to prep food, right? Like by the time I gave him the meal, I was already mad. Thank you, Anya. And nothing had happened. So I looked at him and I said, I can't do this. You have to do this. Here are some numbers. And I gave him some phone numbers. I am not an Al-Anoner. I need Al-Anon desperately. But some Al-Anon came through that day where I knew I couldn't do it for him. And I feel as though it saved our marriage that day. And he's been abstinent ever since, by the way. So that has nothing to, that was a little projection on my part, but I was already tired. I made one meal and I was already tired. So holy crap. My life is amazing today. I've gone to have growth in all different ways. And I can't go into it all. But Gray Sheet is the last house on the left, they say. But man, it is a castle. And I am just so grateful to be here. And, I have a home group. My home group is the Monday night Why Not meeting. We meet at 7:30. Yeah, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. It's where I'm at on Monday nights. And if our AA home group is a beginner's meeting, but we call it the greatest group in the galaxy. And what I say to people when I share from the podium in AA is that if your home group isn't the greatest group in the galaxy to you, you need to make it that way. Because there's one place I want to be on a Saturday night at 6:30, unless family or a wedding, we're going to a wedding today of a former group member, gets in the way. And it's a stinky church basement in Old Orchard Beach. And I'll tell you, it is stinky, it is old, but that's where I want to be because that's my home. And the Why Not meeting on Monday nights at 7:30, that's the same thing for me. It gives me a community. I am not alone. And you know what? I felt alone for a very long time. And today I'm not alone. So thanks, Stephanie, for asking me to speak today. And I don't eat no matter what.